welcome to everyone who's here tonight, and it's a nice-sized group of people, and we can tell there's an important message that you have. And since so many of you are here tonight, we've had a suggestion of us changing our agenda. And so maybe if someone would want to put that forth in a motion, that we would put first the comments from the public, and then start the agenda after the comments from the public. We know you all have lots of homework to do, right? No one said anything. Okay. Is there a motion put forward, Deanna?
I move that we modify the agenda. I move that we modify the agenda to have comments from the public as our first item of business before election of officers.
Is there a second on that? Sherry seconds it. And all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. And that is a unanimous vote, everybody. So, comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes are allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak? Why don't you sort yourselves out as to who comes first and second? And if you could just identify yourself by name.
Hi, my name is Liz Schmidt. I run the New Canaan High School squash teams. Before we start, I just wanted to thank all of my squash players for coming tonight. I'm really proud of you guys. And I just wanted to introduce who we are and what this mob over there is before we started speaking. Thank you for having us.
Hi everyone, I'm Hillary Schmidt, a 2010 graduate of New Canaan High School, and I started the squash club in 2006 when I was a freshman. I'd grown up playing squash, which was a popular New England sport for a very long time, today particularly in Fairfield County. When I got here, I was surprised that no one had previously shown interest in creating a team, but I thought that it had a lot of potential here. Today, that 9-player team that I started with, most of them had never even picked up a racket before, has grown into a team of 80 players who are part of a recognized and respected varsity and JV team who compete around the country. Now New Canaan High School students are applying to some of the best colleges in the nation for squash. We've come a long way, and I really hope that this sport will continue to grow here. You'll hear tonight from the boys and girls varsity captains and my mom, Liz Schmidt, who has been running the program for the past 8 years. We hope to receive funding for the squash team, and thank you so much for listening to us tonight.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sammy Marcus. I'm a senior at New Canaan High School. I've been playing squash for the past 3 years. This will be my 4th. I'm the girls' varsity squash captain. I love squash. It's one of my favorite things to do. We have a great team over there, a lot of supportive people. The girls' team has really grown. We're here looking for funding because we're growing at rates and we need help. We've come a long way since I started as a freshman from just being a club sport. I was one of the only 2 girls on the JV team, and now to have a team of all girls, it's such an exciting thing. I want to say thank you for listening to us tonight. Thank you to everyone who came again. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Will Grusecki. I am one of the captains in the New Canaan High School squash team, and on behalf of the entire team, we would like to thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I first got involved in squash in 7th grade through the middle school program that Mrs. Schmidt had started. I was new to New Canaan, and many of my teammates today are my closest friends, now playing together for more than 5 years. Like many of my teammates, squash was the only organized sport in which I had played. In addition to forging great friendships and learning a new sport, squash has helped all of us grow in other ways. As an example, players are responsible for scoring and reffing their own matches. This is unlike any other varsity sport that I know of, and I feel that it has been a tremendous growth experience as far as our sense of fair play and sportsmanship, especially since we cannot afford a coach to be present at matches with us. We all have to rely on one another to support and encourage each other with peer coaching. Though we each play on the court alone, we realize that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We are part of New Canaan High School squash. While squash began as a fun activity, it has become something more to all of us. We have put in many hours, days, and years into this program. And while we are proud of what we have accomplished so far, we are here tonight hoping that you will help us to secure the future of New Canaan High School squash. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, again, my name is Liz Schmidt, and I run the New Canaan High School squash teams. We are here tonight to seek funding so that squash can continue to be offered after I retire this year. I have worked hard over the past 8 years to build a sustainable, solid program, but without funds to pay for a coach to run this program, I do not think that it will be sustainable for long. We feel that there are a multitude of reasons to financially support squash. Those reasons, some history, and some statistics are noted on a handout that hopefully you will be receiving. We are very grateful to Jay Egan for granting us varsity club status. This allows us to honor our players as New Canaan High School athletes with varsity letters for their work, their success, and their dedication to their sport. However, because squash is not a CIAC sport, there are not enough public high schools in Connecticut with squash teams to qualify to be a CIAC sport. The athletic department cannot offer us funds. The bylaws of the New Canaan High School All-Sport Booster Club only allow disbursements of funds to CIAC sports at this time. We understand that there have to be parameters on how and where money is spent. However, we would like to respectfully suggest that perhaps the parameters for funding New Canaan High School sports be looked at. We hope that in light of our number of players, our longevity, our success, and our ability to offer a safe, easily accessible winter sport option for boys and girls, that some new parameters could be put in place, or another area of the budget could be looked at to create funding for a large athletic group like squash that competes in the name of New Canaan High School. We would like to respectfully request $20,000 for the 2015-16 year to pay a stipend for coaches to run the programs and to offset the cost of the programs. Darien High School squash, for example, receives about $20,000 plus a stipend for the varsity coach, plus some transportation costs. I anticipate the cost of our season to be just under
30 seconds.
I'm sorry?
30 seconds.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't know what you said. No funding means an end to the program. Lower than requested funding is understandable, but will require us to cut down on the number of kids that we can admit to the program. Is that my time?
10 seconds. Go ahead. Finish up. You're ending.
We just hope that when New Canaan is confronted with an exceptional opportunity like this, like we feel that this is, that we can take a leadership role in providing funds to continue an opportunity like this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. In the comments period, we don't respond ordinarily, but this is obviously such a show of enthusiasm that we have definitely taken note of your being here and your people who've spoken and your coach who's done this without much support. It's a wonderful thing, and you all deserve to feel proud for what you're doing. I am certain that this will appear at some point on our agenda, and when it does, we'll make sure that you all know about it. But we'll be thinking about it, and I appreciate your coming. Thank you so much.
Great.
Let's see.
Thank you. So you've opened your meeting. I can,
Let me just make sure.
yeah.
Should we now ask, I guess we did sort of do the agenda change, so I ask if there are any other changes to the agenda.
I think that
That was enough.
we could go right into the
Go right
election
ahead.
of board
Okay.
officers.
Okay.
Great.
So I'll handle that duty. First of all, really nice to be here, as I am here with you every year. It's a great opportunity to see you folks work, but more importantly, to thank you, because the dedication of the Board of Education is second to none, and it's appreciated by me, it's appreciated by your town, and I think what's most appreciated by me and by the town is your advocacy for our kids. And you folks do an unbelievable job of that, and very cognizant of that. So thank you, and look forward to working for another year with everyone. That being said, my duties are short and sweet tonight. I come before this body every year, and we go through the leadership roles and elections of leaders for the Board of Education. So the first nomination I'm looking for from the floor would be a nomination for the Board of Ed Chairman. Is there a nomination from the floor for the Board of Ed Chairman? Scott Gress.
I'd like to nominate Hazel Hobbs to be chairman for the coming year. Hazel's outstanding qualifications as an educator and her commitment to the Board of Education are more than enough to recommend her for another year of service.
Thank you, Scott. Hazel's name is in place of nomination. Do I have a second from Hazel? Gene Goodman.
I would be very proud to second Hazel's nomination for chairman.
Thank you, Gene. Before we go on, are there any other nominations from the floor for chairman? Hearing none, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll all vote in the manner of aye with a raised right hand if you're in favor of Hazel Hobbs being elected chairman of the Board of Education. And that appears, okay. So it looks like 8. Hazel, are you voting?
I don't know if I get to vote.
You can vote. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 8 in favor, opposed, and abstaining. Allison Badula will abstain. Okay, so the ayes have it. Hazel, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Rick.
Yep, good job. Now we move on to the vice chairmanship of the Board of Education. Again, I'll accept nominations from the floor for vice chairman of the Board of Education. Deanna.
I'd like to nominate Scott Gress for.
Thank you. Scott Gress for vice chair. Second for that nomination.
I'd like to do a second for Scott. Scott has given many behind-the-scene hours to the leadership team. His caring for an outstanding education for New Canaan students has no boundaries.
Okay, so we have a nomination of Scott and a second. Before we proceed with that vote, any other nominations from the floor for vice chair? Hearing none, we will have a vote then for the nomination of Scott Gress as vice chairman of the Board of Education. Ayes with a raised hand, please. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 in favor. And Ms. Badula, are you abstaining? Abstaining for Allison Badula. So it's 8-1. Scott, congratulations. Nice working with you. And finally, we come to the role of Secretary of the Board of Education. Again, nominations from the floor for Board of Ed Secretary. Penny?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Sherry West for Secretary of the Board of Education. Sherry has brought us her enthusiasm, intellect, and energy for the last year and a half on the board. She has an incredibly strong business background, having worked in communication and finance. Sorry. Better at
You're not on a
electronics
time
than
limit.
I, at a Fortune 500 company. She, I think, created and then chaired the Communications Committee for the last year, which has done a tremendous job reaching out to the community and has helped this board tremendously. It's a tradition, actually, of the Board of Education that we didn't follow last year, but we have pretty much every other year I've been on to have a bipartisan board and to have Democrat on the leadership team. I think Sherry has represented herself well. I think she brings wonderful diversity to the board and would be a fabulous addition. So I'm pleased to nominate her for secretary.
Thank you, Penny. Do I have a second for the nomination of Sherry West as Secretary from the Board of Education? Allison?
I wholeheartedly and proudly second that nomination for all the reasons Penny just stated.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Before we move on, is there any nominations from the floor? Hazel?
I would like to nominate Deanna Carlson. She has strong leadership skills. She's been a real asset to the leadership team. She quickly understands complex issues and works to bring people together to solve them. Her intelligence, experience, integrity, and caring about students cause her to stand out in all she does.
Thank you, Hazel. Before us, Hazel Hobbs has nominated Deanna Carlson. Is there a second for Deanna Carlson? Scott?
I would be happy to second Deanna for another year. Her contribution to the board has been phenomenal, and her dedication has been equal. And I think that her abilities and commitment more than warrant her to serve another term.
Thank you. Okay, so we have two nominees. Both have been seconded on the from the floor. Is there any other nominations from the floor for Board of Education Secretary? Hearing none, I think we will, I believe we do the first vote first, which was, what's that? Sherry West, yeah, thank you. So all in favor of Sherry West as a Board of Education Secretary, please say aye and raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? And all those abstaining? Jean. Abstaining. Anyone else abstaining? I'm sorry, abstaining also? So we have abstaining from Jennifer and from Jean. Okay, so we have 4 in favor of Sherry. Thank you. And now we'll move on to the other nomination before us, and that was for Deanna Carlson. So all in favor of Deanna Carlson, would you raise your right hands and aye? So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 for Deanna. All those opposed? Seeing none, is there any abstentions? Jennifer is abstaining.
I voted for Sherry, so I guess I'm voting no.
Yeah, okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't know we had, yeah.
You're right. You're right. You're right. So we do need, and I apologize. I don't come across this that often. So, so all those not in favor of the nomination of Deanna Carlson.
I think we have to go back to the first.
Oh, we do. I'm sorry. So now we go. So now we
Can I
go.
get a point of clarification?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because we're going to have a number of votes for each candidate.
Right.
Isn't that all that matters toward electing them?
Yeah. You got 4 and 4 right now.
Right, so the noes and the abstentions,
Correct.
Don't
as long as it's a
matter.
majority, and you have them, you would
okay,
think
as
you
long
would
as
have
they
the
don't matter,
majority.
I don't know why, I thought we would normally just ask for the number of votes for
Fine.
this one, yay, 4, the number of votes for this one is 4.
Correct. So you
And
have, so you have
abstentions.
4 of each. So then
Right.
you take it to, you decide amongst yourselves over the next little while on how it works. Brian?
Sure.
Sorry to look to you for
No,
this.
not at all. The Board of Education has 30 days to decide upon this position. So I would recommend that it is taken up at our next meeting in November.
Okay.
At the conclusion of those 30 days, then there's another step by state law. But
Okay.
we can leave it at that for now.
Perfect. So when I leave here tonight, we have Hazel Hobbs and Scott in position, and it'll be in the next 30 days or so when you folks meet and gather to decide on who the secretary is. Understood. Okay. I think my job is done tonight. Thank you for having me again, and congratulations to everyone.
Rob, thank you very much for
Pleasure.
coming. We appreciate your help.
Pleasure.
On the utilities?
If you need me back in a couple of weeks, do it again, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you also for the
Anytime.
suggestion of the attorneys.
Yes. Okay, have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll officially do the call to order. And if there are any other changes of the agenda, I think this would be the time to make those changes, if anyone has any. All right, I see no changes. Then we'll move into approval of the previous Board of Ed minutes. May I have a motion on approving? Sherry? And is there a second to approving? Sangeeta? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And I think that's everybody. Are there any additional comments from the public? It just occurred to me that there might be other additional comments that we didn't have, so just to ask that question. Doesn't look as if there are, so then we'll move along. We have reports and recognition, and that would be the New Canaan High School debate team, a UPenn field trip, report and vote. Do you want to preface that, or is there?
Oh, it'd be my pleasure to introduce Chris Goldhawk. Chris teaches social studies for us at the high school and is passionate about this debate club that she has been sort of nurturing and developing and shepherding through these last couple of years. And she's done some pretty amazing things with them that she's going to share with us a bit tonight and talk about this field trip that's coming up in February.
Okay.
Ms. Goldhawk.
Yeah, I have a really short PowerPoint just to kind of go over some of the highlights. So while we're waiting for the projectors to warm up, I've been heading the debate team for about 5 years. And in those 5 years, we've grown from having like 6 kids and we'd go to like 3 tournaments. I actually have 92 on my roster this year. And if you approve UPenn, we'll be going to 12 tournaments. And over the course of our time, we've gone from kind of showing up to actually winning. And the last 3 years in a row, we've been 3rd in the state. So, all right, so just a couple more quick facts. Our 92 members kind of come in, come out, depending on their sports that they have going on. I have team members from most of the sports actually on my debate team, including football players. Our practice is every week for about 1 to 2 hours, depending on whether or not we have a tournament coming up that weekend. And at every single practice, I have about 30 kids there working really, really hard. And it's at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so if you ever want to come and join us, it's Thursday afternoons at 5. We normally do 1 to 2 competitions a month, depending on whether or not we have a college tournament, in addition to our league tournament, our seasons from September to April. And this is just a picture of us in my room, practice. So in terms of our tournaments, we belong to the Connecticut Debate Association. The Connecticut Debate Association is run through CAS. I am on the executive board. This is my 3rd or 4th year on the executive board. I help run the tournaments when we actually are at the various schools. And we debate something that's called extemp. Basically what this means is me and 2 other coaches have come together and we've put together a packet of information anywhere from 10 to 12 pages long on a particular topic. There's one resolve over the course of the day, and students have to argue both sides of the resolve. They've got the information they can bring in outside, but really you're not having to prepare like you might think of the old-fashioned policy. However, our debate association is starting to move towards a different style called parliamentary. And this is a style that we have traditionally debated at both the Yale Invitational and Yale Osterweiss, and hopefully at UPenn. We are moving towards parley because this is the style that colleges are moving towards themselves. So if we're going to prepare our students to continue on doing debate in college, we need to start kind of moving in that direction as well and helping to support them. So why UPenn? Most of the colleges and universities, like I said, are moving to parliamentary. This is something that our kids actually do fairly well in. We are very competitive in state. The Yale Invitational is actually an international tournament where we have students from across the country as well as from my home country of Canada. And at this past Yale Invitational, we took 3 teams. One was a novice team, and of our 2 varsity teams, one was an octafinalist, one was a semifinalist, and we took 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place speaker. So we do really well at this, and the kids want to try, branch out a little bit, get out of Connecticut, and so UPenn was the one that we thought would fit well because it happens mostly over the first weekend of February break, and so it minimizes the time out of school. We'd basically be looking at missing the last period of the Friday before February break, and that would be it. It's easy to get to. We would take the Amtrak train down, drops us off 3 blocks from campus. The hotel is a block from campus, 2 blocks from the train station. So there's no driving, no bus needed, and everything is contained. It's all on the campus. The food is on the campus. This is something that has been run very well for the past 3 or 4 years, the parliamentary division. And so our students have been kind of working towards this. We saw it on the horizon about 3 years ago, and they said, we want to try this. We want to kind of get good enough that we can justify having this kind of expense, because we normally run pretty cheap. We have $250 registration fee for the entire year for the CDA. Yale's kind of gone up a little bit in price, but normally our entire budget for the year, excluding my stipend, is less than $1,000. So this is going to be a big thing for us in terms of fundraising for UPenn, but the kids are really dedicated. They want to do this. And so my one last thing, before I answer any questions that you guys have, we are actually hosting our annual tournament on November 15th, this 2 Saturdays from now. We are expecting to have our largest group ever, about 260 debaters, and around 80 judges and coaches here, taking up about 65 classrooms and other assorted spaces. The CDA has been growing year after year. We have over 40 schools across the entire state, and we normally average anywhere from about 400 to 550 debaters statewide on any given weekend debating. And so this will be our largest tournament that we've ever hosted. And if you ever want to stop by and kind of see what we're doing, November 15th would be a great day to do it. So please come on by. And I'd like to publicly say thank you to Bruegger's and Pinocchio's. They have helped feed all of these people for the last 2 years. They're continuing to do it this year, and we just couldn't do it without them. So if you guys have any questions about UPenn, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't really have necessarily a question,
No.
but I do want to applaud you. I think it's fabulous that this program is growing and has grown so much. It's a skill that the kids can use in whatever profession and career in life that they go into. So I'm glad to see that it's been so successful and that you're looking to expand.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't have a question about UPenn, but I've heard this question several times, and I'll give you, this is your chance for a commercial. Explain the difference between debate and Model UN, because I know they're using a lot of some of the same similar skills.
Yes.
I've heard that question so many times.
All right. We do use the same skills, and we actually share some of the same students. One of your big differences between debate versus Model UN, when you're in Model UN, you're going to be in a room, could be a small room, could be a large room, but you're going to be in a room with people, and you're playing a role. You're playing basically a UN ambassador. Or if it's one of the historical rooms, you're playing a historical person. And so you're trying to negotiate and build alliances. And so it's very political minded. But you're still using your public speaking skills. Debate, it's you and your team member. And you've got to resolve. And the resolve could be anything from Connecticut should abolish the death penalty, to something foreign policy. Our state finals last year, we actually had to argue from the Russian perspective why they should be able to annex Crimea. So it could be foreign policy, it could be state policy, national policy, but it's you and a team member, and the style of debate we do in terms of extemp, we essentially, it's basically a persuasive DBQ in a way. And so students who actually do debate actually will see an increase in their writing scores because they get used to having to not only figure out through your 3 contentions, it's basically like your 3 topic sentences, if it's a 5-paragraph essay, figure out what's the really good evidence, how can you back it up, and how can you smash the other side. And so it's a different type of speaking skill. Mm-hmm.
Just a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about extending the debate to Sachs Middle School, similar to what Model UN has done, and it's been met with great success at Sachs?
There actually is the very beginnings through CAS of a middle school debate league. I've not found a teacher at Sachs yet who wants to do it. But if there's a Sachs teacher, I have students that are willing to come down to help. But there actually is a structured middle school league through the Connecticut Association of Schools that's just kind of starting this year.
I just also wanted to add my applause to your great efforts. I think this is terrific and fully support the UPenn trip, as I think the rest of my board members do. So we're really pleased to see you here tonight. Appreciate it.
I would add, I'm looking forward to the 15th and seeing how this all works and goes together. It's very exciting to host it here.
It is, and I mean, obviously, we are actually very fortunate. You guys have been incredibly supportive of the debate team, not only through paying me, but also the fact that when we host, you guys don't ask us to reimburse you for, the custodians or anything like that. Not all schools are like that in the state of Connecticut. And so we get asked to host year after year after year because of the fact that you guys support us and that we can actually put on a really great tournament. We get compliments every single year.
Does anyone, excuse me, Jean.
Yes, I will not be around on the 15th of November. Is there a time after that? Would it be a good opportunity to observe the debate team and
Any
practice?
Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock. We
Where?
are in room 105.
105.
Yep.
Yes, Scott.
I guess I have a comment and then a question. A point of clarification, maybe. First of all, yeah, I totally agree. Congratulations. I think what you do is great. I think these are life skills that will do more for, some of these kids than many of the other things they may pick up in the classroom. Don't tell anybody I said that. You're asking us for support for the trip. There's no financial support. You want a one period class off, and that's really what we're looking to vote on tonight.
Basically, I need your support, need your blessing because we're traveling outside of Connecticut.
Right, so we need a motion for that. Is that what you were forming was a motion on?
I would be honored to make a motion that we approve the request of the debate club for their trip to the University of Pennsylvania.
Is there a second on that? Jean? And just any more discussion on it before we vote? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. And it looks like it's 100%. Everybody's saying good luck and
Thank you very
how
much.
exciting.
Yeah. And anytime you want the kids to come in, they'd be more than happy to come by.
We'd like to hear, I think, after the trip. That would be nice to hear about. Thank you.
Yeah, post-budget.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming and presenting that to us also.
Thank you.
All right, now we have the action items. 2015-16 budget assumptions and priorities, our first read. And would you like to talk to us about this, Dr. Lutzy?
Yes, I'm going to move around to the podium if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry about that. Just had to quickly switch this over. As we move into the budget development phase of the year, we begin with our goals, priorities, and related assumptions, using the district goals that we developed and voted on in the spring as our guideposts throughout the way. The draft that we'll review tonight comes from discussions with parents, teachers, administrators, and others as we look for their input when identifying the priorities and drivers in our budget for both the long and the short term. In front of you, you have two packets. One is just a copy of the slides that I'm going to go through briefly tonight, and the other is the entire document in draft form. You're welcome to follow along with whichever one you prefer. Okay. The priorities that we're going to be talking about tonight, we've been discussing them and these assumptions at administrative meetings for the past month or so, and I'm glad to bring them to you tonight to share as just a first read, and it's just a draft of the priorities, goals, and related assumptions. It's important to note the intent of the document as we begin our budgeting cycle. This document's meant to provide a high-level connection between our district goals, which drive much of our work, and our budgetary decisions for the short and the long term. It's not meant to be an operational document in that it does not include specific budgetary requests or dollar amounts. Instead, it's a high-level thinking about our goals and some of the priorities that flow from these goals. And again, it's only a first draft at this point, so I'm bringing it to you as that in order to begin that conversation. But in essence, while it doesn't have the actual dollars, it begins our discussion while keeping us always focused on our mission. Thinking of our budget as a policy document where we allocate resources according to our mission, vision, values, and beliefs. This document here is meant to help in that work by articulating and making explicit those things. And thanks to the success and the sustainability of our school district through the years, you'll see that much of the language is the same as last year, which was the same as the year before that. Because as we're looking at our budget and thinking about our practices and our policies, much of what we do is very successful. You'll see some evolution in language, an adjustment to the structure this year. It's structured a little bit differently than you've probably seen in the past. And there is some new language, but overall, the document is not meant to be groundbreaking in what we're doing. What it's meant to do is help us to always find the true north in our deliberations so that we're always sure that the decisions we make are, again, grounded in our mission, vision, values, and beliefs as a school district. And of course, as I'm going through this, you can stop me at any time for conversation. I thought it'd be easier and better for me to stand here to present this instead of trying to swivel my head back and forth as we were talking. So I hope you understand. So just to begin very briefly, taking a quick look at our district goals. District goals and evidence of student learning inform the development of school, department, and individual annual growth plans that are finalized at the beginning of each school year. The annual objectives highlight the priorities for the upcoming year, although the ongoing complex work of our district across all departments and domains continues even if it's not specified in one of the goals. In addition, the annual objectives guide resource allocation and decision-making, and this is how we draw that explicit connection here. Looking at the goals, it'd be easy to assume that Goal 5 is our budget goal. But as we just mentioned, we here in New Canaan, our practice is to look at it a little bit differently. Thinking of our goal of budget, again, as a policy document, and that it needs to reflect our mission, vision, values, and goals, and beliefs. As such, all 5 of these goals need to be articulated in and directly connected to our budgetary requests as we go forward. You'll see the assumptions that I'm going to run through very briefly are divided into 5 sections. They're related directly to these goals. I'm not going to read through the entire document. I know I'm breaking the rules of PowerPoint use by putting more than 6 words on a slide, but part of this also is knowing that this presentation will be publicly available afterwards. So what I wanted to do here is just hit a couple of the big ideas that we have in the budget assumptions, the 4-page packet that you have, and then a couple of the bullets underneath, but the rest will be available for sort of viewing as well as we go forward. And again, this is just the very first read and draft version of this. Okay? So we start with, there we go, Goal 1. So Goal 1, again, not in any order, just so that we can identify them. Goal 1 is to increase student learning as measured by multiple and varied assessments to assure all students graduate prepared for a complex global society. So the big idea, one big idea under this goal, is that preparing all students to excel in a dynamic and complex global society requires a sustained focus on an investment in curriculum instruction and assessment by a highly qualified and effective staff. Essentially identifying the 3 most important practices, things that we work on in a school district: curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And then each one of these bullets, each addresses one of those. The first bullet addresses the staffing, stating that it's highly qualified, effective administrators, teachers, staff, sufficient to meet all internal and external expectations are the cornerstone of our district's efforts. The second looks at the curriculum and the investment in curriculum so it can be continually updated and revised. And then the third looks at a system of assessment, a coordinated system of assessment K-12, which provides the foundation for our teachers to learn about their students, to work together and individually to improve their instructional practice to help students continue to learn well. So as we just so understanding how this document works, as we look at our budget, as we go from this 30,000 foot view to a 15,000 foot view, and we start to talk about what this might look like and some of our ideas around programs and investments and support. Then from the 15,000, we get to the almost ground floor, where we start talking about what those dollars actually are. And so as we work, beginning tonight, and work over the next couple of months, we start tonight, and next meeting, we talk about this a little bit more. We get to our board workshop, where we talk about those ideas and the thinking and the directions we're going in mid-December. And then when we present the actual first read of the superintendent's budget to you in January, we're then on that sort of the ground floor and looking at what the actual costs are. So we start up high with these connections, work our way down to the 15,000 and then down to the 5,000 foot view. Okay? So another big idea connected to goal number 1 is this idea that district resources must be purposefully distributed and dedicated to areas that drive student performance. Wherever possible, we want to be sure that every dollar that we're spending is helping our students to learn and to perform. So some related assumptions under that big idea has to have to do with class size guidelines and maintaining the team structure at SACS, which we feel helps, is reflected in the students' performance there. So again, you'll see connections to this as we work our way down. I know when Greg was here last week, Mr. Macedo was talking about the need for some staffing in the 7th grade due to some enrollment increases. Okay? So there's the connections there. Okay. Goal 2. Our goal 2 talks about improve achievement, service, and relationships through communication that is responsive, clear, timely, and inclusive. So a big idea around this is that that type of communication is the result of purposeful planning and thoughtful action. So an assumption under that is the continued investment in the work we've been doing this year in the website redesign. Also talking about other means of best practices, other ways that school districts successfully communicate with stakeholders in order to engage everyone in the educational process. And then the belief that effective communication is essential in order to create the conditions where all students can excel. And then we talk about the integration of appropriate communication technologies, which do come at a cost. As we know, there are budgetary items around these. But we feel that they are aligned with our mission, vision, values, and beliefs. Goal 3 is to promote and support innovative and exemplary research-based professional practices in order to continuously enhance teaching and extend learning. Okay. So here we talk about the importance of continuous coaching, professional learning, peer collaboration, so that we can attract, develop, and retain highly qualified and effective staff. We talk about the structures that we have in place around our leadership, for our administrative leadership and our curriculum leadership, and the importance of maintaining those. And we've begun in our district goals we've talked about reviewing our schedules and continuing to develop and nurture our professional learning communities across the district. So again, what that might mean, there could be other resource needs as we look to do that, and we feel that that's, again, aligned with what we believe as educators. Budget assumption 4, or goal 4, is to promote an environment that fosters respect, ethical behavior, and responsible citizenship. Okay. See the big idea under that budget? Under that goal, I'm sorry. And that these healthy, safe, and secure learning, work, and transportation environments are integral to the educational success and social emotional development of our students. Okay. So a continued investment in our security initiatives in order for the health and safety. A diverse catalog of co-curricular and extracurricular opportunities increases the likelihood that every student will become engaged in at least one school-related activity outside of the school day, and some of the reasons for that, which is connected to our earlier conversation with our visitors. Okay. This would also have bullets in it, such as maintaining the campus monitor structure that we have, and maintaining the existing level and structure of our student support services, including our school counselors, psychologists, school social workers, kids in crisis counselor, school resource officers, et cetera. Goal 4 is also about facilities because of the environment, and the maintenance and improvement of school facilities is a sound financial practice that results in healthy, safe, productive learning and work environments. And then the, again, assumptions that flow from that big idea include consistently investing in the ongoing maintenance of district facilities helps prevent unexpected, costly, and urgent needs from surfacing in the future, among others. And we know last year we began investing in the maintenance of our buildings to a level that we hadn't in the past. And I feel one of the assumptions under this is that that is the prudent thing to do in the long term because of how it protects us from these sudden, unexpected, and often very costly needs. Okay. Goal 5 is to promote and practice good stewardship for all resources in a manner that supports safe and healthy environments and optimizes student learning. We think about Goal 5. I felt it was the best place to put this, although I wasn't quite sure. It could go in other places as we sort of break it down. But we do, as you know, and conversation has been for a couple of years at least, we are driven by state mandates. One of the things I think we do very well in New Canaan, and I've said this at a couple of different groups and places that I've been fortunate enough to speak with, is that we don't allow those mandates to come to us and sort of buffet us and change our behavior. TEPL, I think, is an excellent example of that, our teacher evaluation plan. What we do is we look at whatever that mandate is, we meet the requirements around that, but we do it in a way that we are able to stay true to our mission, vision, values, and beliefs, to the things that we hold dear and that we value as an educational system and as a community. As I've said before, many communities, for instance, adopted the state model of teacher evaluation. Most did. There's only 13 across the state who didn't. We're one of the 13 who didn't because we felt that we could do a better job in developing a system that was appropriate for us and our beliefs and what we do. So we have that mandate and we respond to that mandate, but we respond to it in a way that it doesn't change who we are. We adjust and adapt that so that it works within our system and our beliefs. And we use it as a lever to improve the work that we do, as we have with TEPL. So, but we do have to respond to them as these mandates come. So we continuously do that, and do that in a way that it can be more difficult, a little less technical in some ways, more adaptive, because sometimes there's new learning involved, but I believe that's the right way, and one of the reasons why we continue to improve. I think the School Climate Initiative is another example. Instead of just giving the survey, reporting the results, we're going to use those results with our students in order to continuously improve our schools. So. Also under Goal 5, again, the stewardship goal, educational excellence requires significant sustained investment. Okay? And we talk about transparency of our process and the need to engage all of our community stakeholders in our budgetary process together. Okay. Okay. And another big idea under Goal 5, meeting the community's high and growing expectations for responsive services, excellence in educational outcomes, and fiscal prudence requires a forward-looking and collaborative approach to goal setting, reporting, and funding. So as you look just through the couple that have been highlighted in the rest of the packet, you'll see much of it is not about asking for more. It's about maintaining a level of excellence that we have. And where appropriate and or necessary, we do add. But we also look to be sure that we're finding efficiencies and developing a budget that's responsible, but will continue to move us forward as a school district and for our community, for our kids. For instance, well, the way these are connected, in another example, as the high school looks to expand the advanced placement offerings, as Dr. Leduc explained to us last week, and include a few more, there are direct connections there with the curriculum piece around Goal 1, with the training and professional learning that the teachers would require, around goal 1, and then the continuous ongoing work that that person or those people would be doing around professional learning, which is goal 3. So many of our initiatives connect in multiple spots, which is what you would expect, because all of the 5 goals and all of these things that are written here are aligned with, again, with our belief and our mission, which is appropriately setting very high expectations for all of our students. So as you consider these over the next few weeks, and certainly open it for discussion tonight, please look to identify any voids that you might see, any areas of focus that you think should be highlighted, maybe that aren't, or areas that might be that you don't think should be, or if there's anything in here that you don't think is appropriate to be in here. This is just a starting point for our budgetary conversation. And again, it's, this is a process, and so process, you take one step at a time. I know there's always a part of me that just says, well, what are the numbers, and let's just do that. But this is a way that we make sure that those decisions we'll be making over the next couple of months and really right into the spring are consistent. That, I do think of it sort of as a compass. This points us to our true north, which is the direction we need to go, and it helps us from sort of being kind of buffeted about as our response to the mandates, keeps us from being buffeted about. By sort of articulating these things and explicitly connecting the budget assumptions, related priorities to our goals, I think we can be consistent in our approach as we put this together and prepare to present to you the superintendent's budget in early January. And then I'll come around and we can talk. Thanks.
Appreciate your explaining this to us. I think all of us are sort of trying to digest and seeing which goes from which and where it goes together. It's like a nest and eggs and going, maybe like the little Russian dolls going back and forth and trying to figure which one. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask as they're looking at this now? This is the first time we're looking.
Yeah, and this is a first read, and really it's your document as much as it's mine, so I think it's an open discussion with everyone, and I'll come around.
Yeah, I was saying that I kind of like this approach of, defining, what our goals are, and then what we need to do to meet those goals, and then justifying the expenses and that we do spend to get to where we want to be. So I like that process. I think it's going to take me time to kind of go through the detail work, like you said, rather than just right here to get what other questions. But I do like the format of kind of thinking of it in these type of terms.
Scott?
2 thoughts. One is when we talk about in Goal 1 and our budget assumptions of curriculum and curriculum review, can we get an update as to what curricula are under review, what are coming under review, so we have a sense for, and not just maybe this year, but if as far out as it's planned, so we can see where that budgetary how that looks going forward, because there's obviously money that needs to be allocated to those, and they're worthwhile. And my other thought was, when I look at also in Goal 1 about the class size, and I think about how important class size is, and it seems to me that in a number of classes, sections, we're at the very maximum of our range. And I really think that we've been operating under that sort of fiscal pressure to be there. And I would like to see us, in our budget, request that we ease back toward the lower side of the ranges or the middle of the ranges, rather than trying to live at the very upper end and erring sometimes on the side of being outside of our range.
We did hit a lot of classes, particularly in SACs, I think, this year, that they were only one over, but still they're on the outside range.
Right, and when you target the upper range and you miss out side of the range. So if we targeted the middle or the lower side and we missed, we'd miss inside the range and still be. And I think
also
that's
the second
prudent.
grade, I think we had the same problem with, and I think that's a good idea for us to be looking, because I think that's something that all the boards have supported for years, is trying to make sure that that class size stays where it does. Are there any other comments or questions or suggestions? Yes, Penny?
I think a lot of these we've seen before, and they have served us extremely well to keep our goals consistent and to try and move the district forward in a meaningful way. I guess I'm a little concerned that there's some change in practice in goal item 5C, little I. I certainly believe in collaboration. I think that's the only way we can move forward, and in long-term planning. But the way we've always worked the budget before is that the Board of Ed has kind of set these these are really lofty goals. And we've set those, and then we've worked really hard as a board to determine what our highest priorities were in terms of budget. Work to get the lowest possible reasonable number on that, and then presented that budget once we determine it to town bodies. And I think that has served us well, and then the town bodies have always had lots of questions. Some town bodies are more vigorous than other town bodies. From year to year it changes, but I think we've had good conversations within the town. And I'm a little concerned that we're kind of changing that procedure. It's suggestive that we're changing that procedure with that first parenthetical. So I think I would suggest changing the language on that. I don't know why we're signaling out insurance costs, and the first parenthetical suggests that we get town people involved even earlier than we're doing currently. And I just think that it's the Board of Education's budget. I think we should prepare it. I think we should talk to people. I think we should put together the best budget that we can. Obviously, that involves some collaboration. And then let's go talk to the town about it. But that's our job. So I didn't want to give my job away.
Any other thoughts? Yes, Deanna.
I guess I would take a little different tact on that same item, considering that, sort of I'm on the committee that's sort of working on that item. And I think we've all sort of realized that while we still control our budget, it only serves us well to be working with and communicating with town bodies so that, we have I think, a better, more productive system going forward. So I don't see this as losing control. I see it as just what it says, being collaborative, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that word.
I think I support it.
Jean?
Well, let me ask our good leader a question on that very thing. I read it and it says, I think, to me clearly, ensures long-term capital and insurance costs are addressed. So I take that not to be working with the CFOs and the town bodies on the budget in general. As Penny points out, that's our responsibility. But I see that, to me, it says in the insurance and capital areas where, in fact, there's many opportunities to work with the town who are also going through capital needs and, in fact, fund those as well as the insurance things to explore that, as opposed to in the budget in total.
Right. Yep, and that is
it's limited.
The spirit in which that was written was to be, right, the capital and the insurance piece.
Okay.
Yes. Sherry?
I also wanted to echo what Sangita said, that I just think this process and framing this up in this way is very helpful. And I'm thinking about this as a communication document as well. And I would love to see us in 1A perhaps get a little more specific about the curriculum that we're going to be working on. I love the wording, the curriculum must be continually updated, but to the extent that we can include the goal around STEM, for example, or around AP, adding more advanced placement courses, or to the point that we can actually add some of the specifics around the curriculum enhancements that we're focusing on. For example, in the past, when we were adding Mandarin, that was clear. I remember that being in this document. So just, again, thinking of this as a communication to our public, just so that they know what our areas of focus are, I think that'd be very helpful. The other thing is, and maybe I'm just missing it in here, because again, I haven't had the time to go through this, but in terms of developing like a technology competency in our students, I'm not sure if that's where that is.
The ICT is mentioned a couple of times. Again, not to a level of specificity, but as a general belief.
But as we develop 21st century students, clearly,
in like A2, in the curriculum work.
Right.
It talks about informed and ethical use of technology, through authentic
Right.
opportunities, things like that. So
Right.
it's sort of woven in that way, but not
Does it need-
specifically
right.
like
So I
you're
guess my
talking
question would be,
about
does it need to be
STEM
more
or something.
clear? Is it important enough to be more enunciated here?
I see it number 8, 1A8 also as
Right.
ICT.
ICT literacy. I-
I'm not sure if you can do this or it comes out so clearly, but just along those lines of as you're showing what areas that we're expanding and growing towards, sometimes some areas become more obsolete or there's shifts in ways because it's just not what the world is today and we kind of have to adjust for those. So I don't know if there's any way to incorporate, how those kind of work just to show what direction we're going with and in what areas we're looking at that perhaps, this is not meeting our goals anymore and so we, how we putting our emphasis on things. But like in terms of, so for example, like if you're doing APs and you're expanding like maybe 2 APs, but you realize that this one was poorly attended, so you may not want to have this particular AP, or there's a shift, that there's more importance to putting it in this area, and you don't find that there's as much of a need because people aren't enrolling in it or they're not, gaining from something else, just so that we can see that, we're not always just adding, that we're also creating those efficiencies.
Sure, and a little bit later in the budget process, we will be talking about efficiencies, and each of the cost centers will talk about some of the decisions that they've made for exactly the reasons you're talking about.
Right.
That we started this, it was excellent when we began it, maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe it was 5, and it's no longer adding the value that it did at the time, so we've moved in a different direction. So we will certainly be having those conversations, and that will be a part of our entire budgeting process together.
It sort of touches on it also, I see on 5B. Let's see, yes.
You're good. We're going to get all these things. I was like, what was it,
5B?
5B?
I think it gets a little bit on on significant investment, fiscally sound, prudent, and transparent approach. It's not quite getting to what you're saying, but it's heading that
Right.
way.
Mhm. No, that's
So-
good.
Other thoughts, Allison?
I just want to say that's generally been our process between the first and the second read, is, generally we receive a similar document to what we've seen in previous years. And one of our strengths has always been that we've chosen a few things and we remain consistent. And I think Dr. Lutze was talking about that when he was speaking to us earlier. And Sherry, to your point, what we tend to do then is we'll have the first read tonight, make a motion on that. And then in between, when we come to sit down to talk about our second read, then we'll get into more specifics, perhaps about initiatives or about particular things. So I don't know if you've already maybe cleaned this up in terms of eliminating anything that doesn't need to be in it. But I think it's always been our strength to keep it relatively general, but also to mention maybe some of our initiatives. But generally, it'll help us, I think, if we all digest this and then come back for the second read and get a chance to really speak to it.
Scott?
Yeah, and Brian, I think it would be helpful when we look at, as Allison points out, as we get to the next sort of phase and we start to look at what are the new initiatives and things like that, to have a sense for, what is our wish list? What are the things on here are things that really might move the district in a forward direction in a big way? Even if they turns out are fiscally, we're not capable of doing them, I'd love to see, boy, I'd really like to move in this direction, whatever those are, and have those pointed out as things that we can look for both in the coming year and years to come.
I think we're fortunate in our timing of the workshop that's coming up about schools of the future, and because I think that as we start to see those things, we'll begin to say, as Allison said, we'll have our list of things to narrow in on and start to see what's happening in other places. So that's timed really well. Any other thoughts about this?
Do you want a motion?
Yes, I'd like a motion. Thank you. Would you like to have a motion and set that in place?
I'd make a motion for the first read for our goals, budget assumptions, and priorities for the 15-16 budget development.
Okay, and we don't vote on that right now. That's just a first read.
We need a second.
Yes, a second, right. That's what I was going to say. We need a second. Sangeeta? Yes. And it's not a vote, but anybody, how do you want feedback on this? Would you like for, if anybody has recommendations that we get back in the future?
Just contact me, but phone or email is great. and we'll-
Okay.
We'll keep working for it.
Okay, terrific. So anybody that has any other thoughts, because this is terrific job of presentation of lots of information, and it'll take us a while, as I say, to go through and get it all understood. Okay, yes, Penny?
Just one other small point, which is in 1A7, I can email this in too. I just think, the literacy in multiple languages and cultural competence, I see those really as core educational areas. And just sort of the language in the second sentence, just where it says, as such, K through 12 language programs and English language learner programs should be supported. Everything here should be supported. I'm thinking maybe we should change those last three words. Maybe we just want to say are integral to the education. Just something a little bit stronger.
Any other things that people are having last thoughts? I see people writing notes down, and maybe notes themselves or for ideas, but this is an important part of the budget process, and very often we get into the particulars of the dollar signs and everything, but this is where it starts. And it's not that the dollar signs aren't important, they are important, but yes, we'll get there. That's the thought right now. I think that motivates most of us to go on the board, why we're interested in what happens with this. So thank you for such a thorough piece for us to look at. Okay, now, moving on, we have the, oh wait, there's one thing. I'm not sure which one it is. I think announcements for future meetings.
Sure.
Is that it?
Couple of quick announcements tonight. I found out today that we were awarded the security grant that we had applied for back in the beginning of September. So that's a reimbursement grant for security at about 20%. So it was nice to be awarded that. And so our next step is to continue that conversation a bit with the Town Emergency Response Group, which met earlier late last week or a few days ago. And they were asking about the grant. We didn't have the information at that point. So we'll be meeting with them in the next couple of weeks and talking about how this goes forward as we began last year. In total, the district, we applied for spending a total of $598,000. So the reimbursement on that would be $121,000 from the state towards the security phase 2.
That's terrific.
Some good news too. Our girls field hockey team beat Darien on Thursday night to win the FCX. It would be 2-0. It was a wonderful game.
Was it the first time ever?
It's a big deal. It's a very big
Yes.
deal.
Does anyone know when? First time since?
Jay Egan told me it was like softball winning, and it had been about 50. It had been 50 years, I think. So
Yeah.
it's been a very long time, and it's a very big deal. And the girls played incredibly well. It was a lot of fun to watch. And Thursday night. Also, all of our fall teams are on their way into state tournaments this season, in our fall season, so every team did. Soccer played tonight, and they won. They played up at Platt Tech, and they won their game. And volleyball started at 6. I don't have an update on that. They were all the way up in Avon.
Someone tweet Dr. Lutz.
Yeah. I'll text Jay again after. We'll find out. But they all did. We also have our Sachs Middle School performance of Peter Pan Jr. coming up November 14th at 7 p.m., November 15th at 11 and 2 in the Sachs Auditorium. And tomorrow we don't have school tomorrow. It's election day, but we do have professional learning for all of our teachers throughout the district. So Dr. Carenti and the administrators and the professional learning team have put together a whole catalog of options for our teachers tomorrow throughout the day. They'll be doing things like there's sessions on technology use and data teams and RTI, which is response to intervention, and SAPL and informational writing, universal screening teams, application of the scientific and engineering process and the sciences. I know it's thrilling stuff for you to hear, but we're really excited about it, and it'll be a great day for our staff. And just that yesterday's winds they caused a power outage at West all day yesterday. I was worried that my first day of school under the contract, having it begun November 1st, was going to have weather-related issues. So fortunately, thanks to Bob Willoughby, who was on the phone talking directly with CLMP and really forced this priority. By about 6:30 last night, we had the power back on. His crew came right out, checked it out, made sure everything was working. Bob got there first thing this morning and made sure the heat was on and everything, the water was running, everything was set for the kids and the staff, and nobody knew. No, it was not a big deal for everybody that needed to go to school today and do their thing. So Bob Willoughby did an outstanding job all day yesterday monitoring that for us and keeping an eye on it. I just wanted to
We are
to
so
let you know.
grateful to not have to use up any of those snow days.
I am so grateful.
Oh, my goodness. We've got to keep those.
Yes, it worked out. But it is a sign of, New England winter's upon us, or at least it's coming. And in the next couple of weeks, I think the forecasts are saying that it's going to get colder and unpredictable.
Does every
So,
year.
There we go.
That's-
Yeah. Upcoming meetings. At our next meeting, we'll be getting an update from the X to 1 committee, which is, again, the technology initiative that's been going on about a year and a half throughout the district. We'll look at our second read of the budget assumptions and priorities that we just talked about. And Nancy will be back for a statement of accounts. First time in a couple of months. And there we have it.
That's terrific. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Just before we leave, the speakers who made public comment mentioned there was a handout, and I just wanted to make sure that.
I have it.
Oh,
Yep, I have it.
Okay, I just want to make sure if they intended for us to have it, that we get a copy. Perfect.
Okay. There being no other discussion, do I hear a motion about adjourning? Oh, comments from, excuse me, sorry. Wait, and we do have some people sitting here, too. We do have time for comments from the public, and again, we would ensure your right to be heard. The board set aside time in the meeting for public comment. 2 minutes are allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. There being no one who's going to be speaking, then I will now turn to the group and say, is there anyone who would like to make a motion about adjourning? Deanna? And a second? And Sherry? All those in favor? Okay.